Am I the a-hole for taking back our groceries that my wife gave to her sister? Original post. My wife, 30, has a younger sister, 28, with 4 kids. My sister-in-law is a married stay-at-home mom, and her husband, 31, works 35 hours per week. Money's tight for them, but they still go on annual vacations, drive newer cars, etc. My wife and I keep separate finances, except for a joint credit card and household bill. I also do most of the grocery shopping. This is relevant for later. A couple years ago, I found out my wife had been buying groceries for my sister-in-law in our joint card, about $150 to $200 per month for a few months. She said that her sister had come to her saying they were tight on money and that she needed help feeding their kids. This about a month after they had gotten back from their most recent vacation in Mexico. I told my wife, in no uncertain terms, that I am not supporting their family. She argued with me, saying that we could more than afford it. I replied that I don't care if she wanted to support them, but that's her business. My wife stopped buying them groceries in our joint card after, but I'm sure she told her sister, because sister-in-law has been standoffish since. In the last few months, grocery costs have been increasing thanks to inflation. So as a cost-saving measure, I bought a whole cow for about $4,000, which works out to about $9 per pound and will last us more than a year. And my wife and I split the cost. Yesterday I went to the freezer to pull some steaks and saw the amount of beef was visibly lower. I checked our security cameras and saw my wife leaving the house with a big box. I texted her demanding to know if she had taken a bunch of our meat to sister-in-law, and she replied yes. I grabbed sister-in-law's keys as we have a copy, drove to their house, knocked on her door, and when sister-in-law answered, I told her that I was taking back what my wife brought over. Sister-in-law protested, saying I was taking food out of her kids' mouths, but I said I don't care. She already had one roast in the oven. I went to their freezer and they had about 40 to 50 pounds of ground beef, steaks, and roasts from our cow, including a couple prime rib roasts. I grabbed it all except the roast in the oven and drove home. My wife yelled at me, saying she couldn't believe how selfish I was, and that sister-in-law called her crying. She also said that she paid for half of it, and so she could do whatever she liked with it. I yelled back, saying you don't get to decide to give away anything that we pay for together, and said she acted like a sneak thief for doing it behind my back. My wife is still angry at me and says until I apologize to her sister, return the meat that I took back, and apologize for calling her a thief, she won't speak to me. I may be the a-hole because my wife pays half the groceries. Now for the top comments before reading the update. I think that sister-in-law is lying to your wife. They take vacations. How does your wife not see that she's playing her? Next, if she is really hurting for food, there is help out there. Not the a-hole. But you shouldn't have called your wife a thief. She was, in her mind, helping. His wife is stealing from his family. She is a thief. It's her family too. Then she shouldn't eat anything at home, since she is giving away her share of it. If she wants to help that much, use her money. Opie said they have separate finances, not with the household. Being charitable with someone else's money is so much easier. Not the a-hole, but at this point, I would get another fridge and lock it with my own food and go separate on groceries as well. Not the a-hole. Die on this hill if need be. At least you'll have more cow to eat. Agreed. You're not responsible for their family, especially when they can afford other wants, not needs. Yep. The fact that sister-in-law can't afford basic groceries but can take full-on trips abroad shows she actually has the money to afford groceries, but has made a decision not to as she knows she has a backup. A little harsh for calling his wife a thief, but I would not budge on not helping with food. Maybe find all the resources that can help feed their family for them that doesn't affect yours. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And this is that case while sister-in-law's family is spending unwisely for their financial situation. Now for the update. Thanks for all the comments/suggestions/criticisms. Regardless of the vote, consensus is my reaction and behavior was suboptimal, which I agreed was. I apologized to my wife for calling her a thief, and that I would apologize to her sister for going over to her house in a huff and upsetting her, but said I won't apologize for taking back the meat which we paid for jointly. I laid it all out and said that my position on me not buying groceries for their family hadn't changed. I said her husband only works 3 days a week, 12-hour shifts, and if they're struggling for food, he needs to pick up more shifts. I also said taking vacations and having new cars is a luxury they can't afford if I have to pitch in to pay for their food. As some of you suggested, I asked my wife, why aren't you buying groceries with your own money if you want to support them? My wife responded she's been buying them groceries for the past couple years with her own money because they're up to their eyeballs in loans and credit card debt. But inflation means their groceries have been costing her more and more. She then admitted to putting some things in our joint credit card in the last few months in smaller amounts than 2 years ago so I wouldn't notice. As for the beef, sister-in-law called her this past weekend crying saying they needed help to the end of the month with food because one of the kids broke their iPad which they used to keep the kids entertained and so they replaced it. She didn't ask me about taking them beef because she knew I would say no if she told me about the iPad. I didn't think I would notice since we have so much beef. She said I have no idea how hard it is to raise 4 kids, and they need an iPad. I told her we need to go see a counselor, because we're on different planets if she thinks an iPad is a necessity. So yeah, we're going to do therapy. Until then, I'm sleeping in the basement. To answer some common questions, why doesn't sister-in-law's husband work more or sister-in-law get a job? He does shift work 3 days a week, 12-hour shifts. He likes it because it frees him up to spend more time with the kids. Sister-in-law has never had a job beyond serving as a teenager. Why don't you put a lock on your freezer? I would like to stay married, and I'm certain if I did this, I wouldn't be married for very long. Did sister-in-law and her husband pay for their vacations and cars themselves? I still don't know, but my guess would be credit cards and car loans, if they're up to their eyeballs in debt as my wife said. Why don't you compromise in helping them? A fair compromise to me if I were to pitch in would be for them to better manage their money, as in not going on annual vacations to Mexico. The last time I raised that, my wife said I was being judgmental. Maybe I'll propose it again in counseling. What Opie's wife doesn't seem to understand is that she isn't helping her sister pay for food and necessities. She's helping her sister pay for multiple new cars and tropical vacations and other luxuries. I don't quite get how she doesn't see that. If she wasn't subsidizing her sister's family with all that cash, they would have to spend the new car money and food instead. Exactly. She's not paying for their needs. She's paying for their wants. It's worse. She is actively preventing her sister to learn how to manage money. I am not sure if Opie's wife understands managing money herself that well. What's with indulging her sister for years, jumbling priorities of food and iPads, and thinking her husband wouldn't notice when months' worth of meat were gone? You're being judgmental. Yes, exactly. He's judging them on their inability to manage their money because they keep leeching off of his. And it's right to do so. The kid broke an iPad so they used grocery money to pay for a replacement? Get lost. This garbage enrages me. As someone who has to go to the freaking food bank to feed my kids when I was working 60 to 72 hours a week, being garnished to hell because of being scammed by AITA tech. Not only that, but husband specifically works less to spend time with the kids. Yet they need an iPad to keep the kids entertained? None of this makes sense. My friend's brother and his ex are the type to let their kids have unrestricted tech access so they don't have to bother parenting. And the parents are on their own phones, /computers, /consoles 24/7 when they are not working. Not that they can keep a job for long anyway. I feel bad for the Opie though. Wife is enabling this horrible behavior because the sister is guilt-tripping her through the kids. Next story. Am I the a-hole for calling the cops and causing him to be taken in for taking my car and using it while I was sleeping? So, I've been seeing this guy 30 male Kevin for several months now. We'd visit each other weekly and last week he spent the night with me. Next morning I woke up 9 a.m. and couldn't find him nor my car. I searched for my car key that was at the bottom drawer in my son's room. I usually hide it in there and no one knows about this secret place, but couldn't find it. I freaked out and tried calling Kevin but his phone was dead, so I ended calling the police after waiting for like 10 minutes. Shortly after, I discovered that Kevin was found with my car at the supermarket's parking lot. He was taken in by authorities and a car was returned. He was fuming at me saying I should have not called the cops because he took the car to go buy his breakfast. In my defense, I said he never asked for my permission and I never gave him the okay to drive it. He argued that he thought I wouldn't mind, much less escalate and call the cops after he's done a nice thing for me and my son. He said he never had issues with cops, But because of me, now they thought he was a thief. We haven't talked since then. His brother keeps berating me, saying I messed up and acted stupidly. Am I the a-hole for freaking out and calling the cops? I didn't even know how he got the key. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Excuse me, has he been snooping in your child's room? Red flag. Yeah, this is where I'm hung up. Was your kid sleeping in his room when Kevin just started rummaging through his drawers? So Kevin was trying to do a nice thing for Opie and her son, which indicates that the son was home, but then she's really worried about a car and not so much about the fact that this guy was searching her child's room while Opie, and possibly her son, slept? He was fuming at me, saying I should not have called the cops because it took the car to go buy us breakfast. And to top it off, is anyone buying this excuse? Not the a-hole. That seems to be the go-to excuse when a guy steals something in the morning. Remember the guy who stole his girlfriend's debit card to buy breakfast? Now I'm wondering if that was a cover story too. Forget him literally stealing your car, but what was he doing in your son's room where I'm assuming your son was sleeping? Rifling through his stuff while you weren't able to intervene because you were sleeping. This guy's a creep, and you need to keep him away from your son. He sounds like a hardcore predator. Protect your child and keep this man away from your family. Not the a-hole. Also, I highly doubt Kevin was getting you breakfast. I bet he was meeting someone in that parking lot for an exchange of something, which is why he was angry cops were involved, and he tried to flip the script and make himself look like the victim. I'm telling you, he is up to no good. Yeah, I hope Opie will come back and clarify whether or not her son was asleep in his room, because let me tell you, if an adult male was in my child's room for an extended period of time, while my child and I both slept, I'd be calling the cops in my way less than 10 minutes, and not because of my car. Last story. Am I the a-hole for not punishing my child for a simple mistake and kicking my sister out? So I, 30 female, have a little girl, 6 female. I grew up in an environment where every mistake was punishable. Dropped ice cream? No more for the rest of the month. Accidentally broke something? Grounded. So when I had my child, I swore I wouldn't punish her severely unless it was very big. So my sister, 34 female, lost her job, so I opened my doors to her and her son, 7 male. It's been going pretty okay, but I recently noticed how whenever her son would make a mistake, he'd act like it was the end of the world. For example, he and my daughter were playing tag in the house, and they accidentally knocked over a vase. I heard a crash from my office at home, and when I came, my nephew started bawling and saying he was sorry. I asked him if they were both okay, and told him that next time don't run around in the house. He looked at me in confusion before running off when he heard his mother coming. I thought that was really weird, but shrugged it off and cleaned up the mess. So last week, I took the kids to the park and my sister tagged along. I bought some ice cream for the both of them and watched them while they played. I needed to go to the bathroom, so I asked my sister to please watch the two of them while I was gone. She obliged. I come back and my daughter is crying. Her ice cream is on the ground and my sister is yelling at her while my nephew is also crying. I ask what is wrong, and my sister tells me that while running around despite my sister telling her not to, my daughter dropped her ice cream. My daughter then said that my nephew was chasing her with a worm on a stick, so she was trying to run away from him. I check up on her to make sure she hadn't hurt herself before exploding on my sister. I yelled saying she had no right to yell at my child, while she said she was just making sure my daughter didn't grow up to be a brat, seeing as I don't punish her. I told her I make sure my daughter learns from her mistakes. I'd only discipline her if it's warranted. I then told her to leave my house, to which she did the very next day. Now, I'm getting messages from my family asking me how could I turn away my sister and her son when they had nowhere to go, and I'm heartless. I feel really bad since her son did nothing wrong. So am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. You're doing right by your girl, and you're breaking the cycle of harm, which I can personally attest is extremely difficult to do. Your sister, on the other hand, is continuing the cycle, and her poor little guy sounds terrified of her. That poor boy is going to grow up to hate his mother. That's sad. Hopefully, because that will mean he got out. Too many kids who are treated like this never get out of the dynamic. Or won't have kids at all, out of fear of inflicting them with the same toxic dynamic from childhood. Like me. Mistreated children become abusive parents. It is a cycle that some break out of, but most people do not. It sounds like you did and your sister didn't. Protecting your daughter from that is a priority. If screaming is sister's opening pitch when something goes wrong, it is hard to expect her not to do that again. It'll be reflex. Also, she sees you as a falling down on a job and that it is her place to fix matters. This is not a good situation. Normally, I detest support family no matter what arguments, but you haven't described her as being someone you've avoided, someone you couldn't get along with. For the sake of your nephew, maybe try and talk to her. Hey, mom and dad may have not been the best at parenting. I don't want to repeat their mistakes. While you are here, let's try something different. Maybe you overreacted, but it was in defense of your daughter. I can't bring myself to call someone the a-hole for trying to be a better parent. I guess, see if there's a way to be a better sister without compromising that. Not the a-hole. Saying most victims turns around and do it themselves is only perpetuating a stereotype that works to stigmatize victims. I'm not saying victims can't become perpetrators, but saying most do is wrong. It only makes things harder for victims. If you look it up, there's actually also research that shows victims as a child end up facing more of it as adults. This is what drove me crazy whenever people found out about my horrible mother and assured me that it wasn't really her fault. That's how her mother treated her, without knowing anything about the situation. My maternal grandmother raised me, was a saint, and was blamed by others for my mother's poor choices and behavior until she died. She probably blamed herself too when she did nothing wrong. The fault rests with the abuser alone. Update. Am I the a-hole for backing out of making my sister-in-law's wedding dress? Original post. I, 24, female, am a seamstress/dress designer who works for private clients on commission. 2 years ago, my sister got married, and as my gift to her, I designed and made her wedding dress free of charge, and all her bridesmaid dresses at cost of raw materials. My brother's then girlfriend, now fiancé, was part of the wedding party and knew I was doing this. Before I even started designing, she asked me if for her and my brother's wedding would I make her dress? I casually agreed. When actually making the gowns, my sister and her other 5 bridesmaids were so nice and pleasant to work with, but my brother's girlfriend was a nightmare. She kept asking me to make changes after we finalized the designs, and I had already started making the dresses. She would cancel and just not show up to fittings. She complained constantly of how it looked tacky and unprofessional. And she even ripped the fabric on purpose when I told her I could not make any more changes. And I had to go on a wild goose chase to get more of the same fabric in the right color. The place I bought it from no longer carried it. My brother proposed 2 weeks ago, and the first thing my new sister-in-law did was come over to me and ask when we could meet to start designing. Now at this point in my career, I have dealt with my fair share of bridezillas and control freaks, and I know how to handle them. So, I let her know at times she could come to my studio for a consultation. Last week was her appointment, and she came in all excited. But when I brought out my pricings and options for her, she got really mad, saying it wasn't fair to expect her to pay when we were a family, and I had given other family theirs for free. I told her nicely that I charged for my work, as would any other vendor she got for a wedding, and that we can look at the most affordable package I have if she was concerned about cost. At this, she totally lost it, screaming at me that I'm a worthless witch, whose work isn't even good enough for her, and that she was doing me a favor by letting me have this opportunity. I tried to calm her down so we could talk, but she just got worse, knocking over one of my display cases and shattering glass, beads, and expensive jewelry all over the floor. At that point, I was done and yelled at her to get out of my studio before I called the cops. Later that day, my brother called me and yelled at me for being so disgusting and unwelcoming to his fiancée. I explained to him that I am more than happy to make her gown and her bridesmaids' gowns at a fair price, but he got even more upset and said that I had done our sister for free, so I should do this one for free too. Now my parents and brother are mad at me, threatening to leave me out of the wedding if I don't make her a free dress. But I still think I should be paid for my work. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments before reading the update. I don't disagree with you and she is reprehensible. And you're entitled to be paid for your work, and she should pay for the damage that she caused. And I understand you not wanting to lift a finger for now. But I am curious as to why you made a dress as a gift for your sister, but would it do the same for your future sister-in-law? Essentially a gift for your brother. Is it just because she's a nightmare to work with? Don't get me wrong, that's reason enough. I'm just wondering because it seems like it would have avoided a lot of family drama. Not the a-hole. I'm extremely close with my sister. We are twins, and when I was starting out with my studio, she helped me out so much. I love her and wanted to give her a specialized one-of-a-kind gift. And since dressmaking is what I'm good at, that is what I decided to give her. I didn't want to do my sister-in-law's for free because it is a very expensive gift. From materials to labor, it costs a lot. I do not feel like we are close enough for me to do this for her. It is thousands of dollars in materials and potentially hundreds of hours of construction. Not to mention the time that could have been used on other potential commissions, my workers' wages, and her potential to be a bridezilla and make my work life miserable. Not the a-hole. Print out a receipt for damages and give it to your brother and family. Then include the prices for your skills and material. Then send another bill asking for a deposit that will cover future damage/BS. Ask who is willing to pay for all that, because no way in hell should it be you. If you know any other seamstress/designers, pass the word so they know what they are getting into if they agree to work with her. Future sister-in-law should learn a very expensive lesson. But I'm an a-hole like that. I'm thankfully at the stage of life where I don't care about being nice or keeping the peace. If she refuses to pay damages, take it to small claims court. Yeah, get her served at the wedding. It'll be your gift to them. This is the ultimate petty revenge and I love it. Have the process server wait until the objection part of the vows. Object, then saunter down the aisle to serve her. I'm sure someone at the wedding can send OP a picture of sister-in-law's face when that happens. Now for the update. First of all, thank you for all your comments, positive and negative. They really helped me see what I did wrong, how I could have handled it better, and what I should do going forward. So as many of you suggested, I sat down with my parents and brother and told them the story from my perspective. From how sister-in-law behaved 2 years ago, through what happened at my studio last week with the CCTV footage as proof. They were shocked, because as many of you suggested, sister-in-law had been spinning lies to cover up her faults and had been completely fooling them. Right away, my parents apologized for how they treated me, and my brother became very quiet. I told him that I would not be making her a dress anymore, regardless of if she would be willing to pay. But if he wanted, I could make him a suit for the wedding, on my own time since my studio specializes in women's wear. My brother thanked me and left. The next day, I got a call from sister-in-law. She was furious. She wanted to know what sort of manipulation and lies I told my brother to make him put the wedding on hold. Apparently, after our meeting, he went home and told her that he was very disappointed and hurt she would treat me this way, and he needed time to think about whether this step was the right one, so he put the wedding on hold. Sister-in-law was so mad she came to my apartment and banged on my door for a good half hour, but I refused to open the door for her. She was screaming so loudly one of my neighbors ended up calling the cops for a noise disturbance, and she was escorted to the police station. I don't know what happened to her after that. Yesterday, my brother came over to my apartment and we had a long talk. It turns out some of you were right, and he did feel left out and hurt by my actions. Since my sister is my twin, he has always felt like we both care a lot less about him than each other. We ended up calling my sister on the phone. She lives in a different country now and all three of us had a long, tearful talk. I made sure my brother knows that I love him immensely, and nothing could ever change that. We hugged it out, and now I believe our relationship is the strongest it's ever been. And I promised on paper that I will make his suit for his wedding, free of charge. After I promised, he told us that he no longer wants to marry sister-in-law, and that he has already started looking for a new apartment. He said the decision was not easy, but ultimately he wants to marry someone who can feel at home in the family, not someone who makes his family uncomfortable. So when he does find the right one, I will be making him and not her the wedding attire. Thank you all for your help and advice. I will not post any other updates because I believe this matter will be over now. I have made custom wedding gowns. People always think they're going to get a one-of-a-kind, over-the-top dress, but for just a few $100. Even after they see how much the fabric and the lace cost, they think you should do the work for free. I think OP is a saint for doing not just a wedding gown, but an entire entourage of bridesmaids as well. A relative made me a dress as a gift. Just the cost of the fabric and the lace ended up being around $400, 20 years ago. That's before all the crazy amount of hours of work and fittings time. A full dress for a major event is easily in the thousands of dollars. I think people underestimate how expensive it is to get good quality white fabric. The reason why the little black dress is a classic is partly because even cheap fabric looks pretty good in black. The fact that light doesn't reflect off it makes it look heavier/smoother than it really is. White shows up all the texture of the fabric, so you can really tell the quality, or lack thereof. More proof, I think, that some people think that a person's value is the same as their fee for the service being provided. Luckily, the brothers saw the issues before the wedding and everything was done. Selfish, disrespectful people like sister-in-law always show their true colors eventually. When she decided to get married into a loving, functional family, it really was just a matter of time until she butt heads with someone and showed her fiancé who she really is. Unfortunately for OP, sister-in-law chose her. Good for the brother for choosing a wonderful family over a rotten fiancé. Last story. Update. Am I the a-hole for not attending my best friend's wedding? Original post. I, 28 female, am entangled in a wedding drama of epic proportions. My recently engaged best friend, 29 female, asked me to be her maid of honor, and words can't even describe how happy I was. We've been inseparable since kindergarten, and I was ready to make her big day unforgettable. I spent nearly $700 on our bachelorette party, buying cute outfits for everyone and renting a party bus with all-you-can-drink drinks. The other girls pitched in, but I'm the most financially stable, so the majority fell on me. I helped plan the wedding of her dreams, right down to contacting the vendors and setting dates when she was too busy. I made a save the date and invitation cards. What I'm trying to say is that I did a lot for her. And then 2 weeks before the wedding, my best friend asked me to step down and said that her future sister-in-law would be taking the role of maid of honor. I was angry, and we got into a huge argument over this, where I admittedly said things I wasn't proud of. Since then, I've received texts from our friends, best friend's family, the groom's family, and even sister-in-law, telling me that I'm a drama queen who needs to get over herself, and that it isn't about me. This has really gotten to me and I need to know, was I in the wrong? Now for the top comments before reading the updates. Not the a-hole. She changed her mind about you being her maid of honor after you've done so much for her and spent so much money, so you get to change your mind about attending the wedding. Simple as that. Info. Did she give you a reason for why she asked you to step down? Sister-in-law's an introvert and might never get to be a maid of honor, while I have a large friend group and might be a maid of honor at one of their weddings. I'm fairly introverted, but that's such a weird reason. Is she close to her future sister-in-law? I feel like that justification is a bit of a cop-out. By the way, you are not the a-hole. Stick with it. That's no way to treat a friend who has spent money for your wedding that you've basically known your entire life. She isn't particularly close to sister-in-law, and even would complain about her at times. Sister-in-law is the youngest member of the nearby extended family. She's 18. I don't know if that changes things, but my friend felt like sister-in-law was cuddled. Info. Did you ask anyone to financially compensate you after you were asked to step down? This feels like a gross bait and switch. Not the a-hole. This is some BS. I tried asking for some of the money back, but she called me money hungry and said I never told her it was conditional. Well, apparently it was conditional, since you were asked to step down. Have you talked to sister-in-law? Once or twice before this went down. She has been texting and calling me to tell me what a self-centered jerk I am, but I haven't replied. The financial burden is a major part of accepting the role. I'm so sorry this BS is happening. Never mind not attending. I'd probably walk away entirely from this relationship. I wouldn't burn bridges if I can help it, in case there's some behind-the-scenes manipulation/abuse happening. Below contact for sure. This is cruel and selfish of them. Not the a-hole. I didn't consider behind-the-scenes abuse. From what I've seen of the fiancé, he's very kind and sweet and treats her right. But I don't know much about the family. I want to talk to my friend once emotions settle a bit. Thank you for your advice and judgment. Now for the updates. Mini update. A small update and to answer some questions. I asked for $200 of the money back because the $500 was repayment from when she paid my rent in college for a month. I hadn't paid her back sooner because she requested I use it for a bachelorette. She's been dating her fiancé for 8 years, and we're waiting to be more financially stable before getting married. So, I called her this morning and asked to talk. She agreed, and we set up a meeting on Thursday at a local coffee shop. I'm a bit concerned because she sounded really shy and nervous on the phone. Hopefully that goes well, and I can do an official update with happy news. Thank you so much for your advice and comments. Now for the full update. Hi everyone. This is an update to my previous post, which you can find on my profile. First, I just want to thank everyone again for how kind and supportive you have all been, but also how honest. I took everything to heart, and everyone's advice was great. Now on to the update. I met my friend at around 9 a.m. yesterday at a local coffee shop. She looked really bad. Her hair was super greasy and unkempt. She had really bad eye bags, and she seemed totally exhausted. When I asked her what was wrong, she just apologized. I kept prodding and it turns out that her in-laws are real pieces of work. Apparently, they've been harassing her for nearly 3 years about having sister-in-law as the maid of honor at the wedding. And when my friend chose me, they went ballistic. My friend said she thought she'd be able to handle it until the wedding day, but then mother-in-law threatened to ruin her wedding unless sister-in-law was the maid of honor. My friend panicked, and that's when she told me I would no longer be maid of honor. She apologized for the money-hungry comment and said that she was just in such an awful place mentally that hearing me mention the money made her really upset. The reason all our friends were attacking me is because they knew about the mother-in-law situation, as my friend never mentioned it to me. Because she didn't want me to step down because of mother-in-law, and they thought I also knew the whole story. And as for the fiancé, he was completely in the dark. He doesn't have a good relationship with his mother already, and my friend didn't want to be what destroyed that relationship. When my friend told me all this, I felt awful. I didn't know she was enduring 3 years of harassment because of me. I immediately apologized, and she apologized, and we both cried a lot. When the tears stopped, she pulled out an envelope with $200 and gave it to me. I originally refused, but she insisted, so I took it. I encouraged her to tell her fiancé, because keeping this from him wasn't helping anyone. And if he decided to cut off mother-in-law, then that was his decision, not hers. After talking a lot more about future boundaries, our friendship and the wedding, I decided I would go to the wedding and we'd still be friends. I know my friend didn't handle this in the best way, but I've known her for over 2 decades, and she's practically my platonic soulmate. That's not something you should throw away because of this. Originally, that was how my updates ended, but as I was about to write this, I received a text from my friend saying that fiancé disinvited his mom, and practically half the family including sister-in-law, because of their treatment of my friend and me. She asked if I would be willing to be the maid of honor again, and I said yes. I just want to give a final thank you to Reddit for helping me through this, and I hope all of you have a nice night. Wow, what an emotional roller coaster! It's amazing to see how your friendship has stood the test of time and endured through this difficult situation. It takes a lot of strength to forgive and move forward, and I truly admire that. Wishing you all the best for the wedding, and kudos to the fiancé for taking a stand against the toxic behavior. Reddit really came through with some solid advice, as always. Stay strong. Have things been clarified with the other friends, and did they apologize to OP? All of this, it is nice that the bride apologized, but it is also on her to clear the air with the other friends and help make amends between them and OP. I can sympathize with the stress bride was under, but it does not negate the hurt done to OP by their other friends because of her actions. I genuinely cannot fathom planning a wedding with someone who either couldn't or wouldn't openly communicate about stuff like this. Right? If a boyfriend's family did half this crap to me, I'd run and tell him first. And he'd better do something, otherwise I'm gone. Not an ultimatum, but I'm at a point in my life where I'm not going to beg or train a partner to treat me with respect. Am I the a-hole for making my brother's wedding reception about me? Plus updates. Original post. I, 25 female, I'm a bridesmaid to the fiancé, 30 female, of my older brother, 31 male. She and I aren't particularly close, but I don't dislike her, and I suspect she asked me just because I'm her brother's sister. I of course agreed, and I was even fine with her putting me in whatever style she wanted, so long as it didn't involve me cutting/dyeing my hair, you know, and major changes. It's not my day, and I can suck up an ugly dress and act like it's gorgeous if that makes her happy. The issue, however, is that I am wheelchair-bound. I know that the wedding venue is fine for me as is our local church, totally accessible, so all good. It's the venue being used for the reception that worries me. I asked her where the reception was going to be and if it was accessible for me and had an accessible bathroom. You know, just covering my bases. She did get back to me, so I figured she was busy, so left it a week or so before chasing her up again to re-ask. She told me she wasn't sure, so I asked where it was and she told me. I ended up looking up the building and my heart sank. It is an old building, not accessible at all for me, and no bathrooms I could feasibly use either. I told her this, and she got very upset, saying my brother had told her that he'd cover the cost, and she should just pick whatever she loved, and that she loved this. She then went on to suggest that we could just have someone carry me into the building, and my family or the other bridesmaids could help me use the bathroom when needed, which the very idea mortified me. I'm not about to agree to being carried in and needing help to go to the bathroom. So I ended up giving her 2 options. If she wanted me at the reception, she needed to pick somewhere that was accessible. If she didn't pick somewhere accessible, then I'd of course still be her bridesmaid at the wedding, but I'd have to skip the reception. She got upset at this as she feels like everyone, especially my family, will notice my absence and question it. It'll make her look bad. She then told me I was making this about me, which wasn't fair when it was her day. I won't lie, at this point I was enraged. I wanted to tell my brother to let him sort this out, but I wasn't about to start a rift between them over this, and I pointed out to her that yes, this was her day, and I had no intention of making about me. However, by marrying my brother, she was joining our family, and she needed to realize that she was not as sensitive as she thought she was. And suggesting that I be carried into the building and aided going to the bathroom was downright insulting. This led to a larger fight, and she told me if my brother didn't already know I was her bridesmaid, that she'd not want me to be it anymore. I called it quits at this point and told her she had my two options, and it was up to her which one she wanted. Am I the a-hole here? I don't feel like asking for the minimum accessibility is a lot, but maybe I'm too upset by the situation and her suggestions to see it clearly. Now for the top comments before reading the updates. Not the a-hole, but I don't know why you wouldn't just tell your brother that you are sorry but you won't be able to attend a reception because the location isn't accessible. Give him a chance to make this right, in case he truly doesn't appreciate how inaccessible the reception location is. If I sit the reception out, I will be telling him that don't worry. However, she picked out the reception venue herself it seems, so he likely has no idea it's not accessible at all. I wanted to give her a chance to fix it before possibly starting a fight between them, which I really don't want to do. It doesn't sound like she has any desire to fix the situation. Given how far out in advance venues are booked, you may want to bring this up to your brother sooner rather than later. Normal people consider their future in-laws. This one does not. Might enlighten your brother. Not the a-hole. She was completely out of line to ignore your requests for information about accessibility, especially given that you are going to be part of her new family and her bridal party. This is on her. You asked early, she ignored you. She can have the venue she wants, and you are not stopping her. But she has no grounds to demand you attend at a venue that doesn't accommodate you. To be honest, I know that you don't want to get your brother involved, but I think it might be a good idea before this gets too out of hand. Don't tear her apart, but just be very gracious. I am so excited to be in your wedding, but it looks like the reception is going to be off the table for me due to the venue being inaccessible. Also, kind of confused why your brother didn't make it abundantly clear to her that each venue needed to be wheelchair accessible when he's lived with you your whole life. I hope he's not often that inconsiderate either. This isn't making her wedding about you. This is you simply declining an invitation that doesn't actually include you. She should have known better, and so should your brother. That's a good idea. I may have to talk to him about this. He is not at all inconsiderate, which is why I've been hesitant to get him involved, as I know with most people he'd get angry over this, and I don't want to start a fight with him. He likely assumed it was obvious that any venue needed to be wheelchair accessible. If I were him, I'd want to know if my fiancé was treating my disabled sister this way. Now for the first update. Hi everyone, here's an update to the situation. As many of you suggested, I checked in with my brother and told him what was going on. But I found out that the reason he'd left the reception to her was they'd made an agreement with him covering the ceremony and should cover the reception. We're Catholic, so we cared more about the religious side of the event, while she cared more about the reception/party. As she's not religious, which isn't a bad thing, just different. I showed him the texts and explained what had happened, and he was angry at her suggestion I be carried into the building and assisted in going to the bathroom. And after only a quick search of the venue she'd picked, he could also see it wouldn't work out for me and promised he'd resolve this and have a talk with her. He was annoyed at me for not bringing this to his attention sooner and told me I shouldn't worry about his feelings over this. The best part of all of this, the venue isn't even booked yet. He had assumed she'd picked out somewhere accessible, but has admitted that he should have ensured that and not thought it a given. So he has told me he'll see it's changed, and if it isn't, they have a bigger problem on their hands. The part that really got him though was the admission that she didn't want me as her bridesmaid if he didn't already know. And he told me that in that case, he didn't want me being her bridesmaid and instead wanted me to be his groomswoman, which I agreed to. I've yet to hear back from him on what's happening, so I can only wait and see. I'll update further when I know more. Now for the full update 11 days later. Sorry for the late update. A lot has been going on behind the scenes, and I've been spending time with my brother in the aftermath, so I have been busy. My brother's now ex-partner refused to reach a compromise on the reception venue, despite days of arguments between the two of them, and apparently even demanded to know what mattered more to him, her having her dream reception or me being there, and she didn't like his answer to that question at all. Likewise, he was disgusted with her attitude, and apparently this wasn't the only red flag, just the biggest one he'd been unable to overlook. For instance, she kept insisting on getting our mother's engagement ring early, which my brother didn't cave on, thank God. My brother is the oldest child, so was promised our mother's engagement ring that has been in the family for generations. And he made it clear to her that she'd get it once they were officially married, and got her a cheap placeholder until then, but she'd apparently been kicking up a fuss about it every so often, trying to get him to cave. I was totally unaware of this until he told me. My brother apparently told her he loved her and wanted to work through this with her, but they needed serious couples therapy before he'd go ahead with the wedding, even suggesting that I tag along for a family's therapy appointment to get to the root of her apparent problem with me, which she didn't take well, and told him the wedding was off. They were breaking up, which he told her that was her decision and he wouldn't fight her on it. So yeah, he's been hanging out at mine a lot, and I felt incredibly guilty over this mess. But he won't hear any apologies from me on it, saying it's better this came to a head now. He's also wanting to take me and our parents on a family holiday with the money he was going to use for the wedding, so he has something to look forward to. I don't want to say we're well rid of her, as I do think she had some issues that my brother was right they'd have needed to resolve in therapy to become a healthy couple, as she seemed to think there was some kind of competition for his affection going on. Anyway, that's where things are right now. I just thought I'd let you all know, as I know many of you were wondering about the aftermath. And there's the swift sound of a bullet being dodged. Yikes. People who think they're in a competition with the siblings are so gross. Do they ever think about what they're actually saying with this? I also would not trust them to not try and compete with their own children. OP is lucky to have a brother who is willing to stick up for her like this. It should be normal, but I read this sub a lot, so... Right? OP may not realize it, but she helped her brother dodge a near-do-well proverbial tempest of a marriage. I'm so glad that he hadn't already given her the family heirloom ring, but the fact that he chose not to give it to her until they were married speaks volumes about how much he actually trusted his ex. I don't understand heirloom engagement rings. His mother was still wearing it. I would not like someone asking me to take my ring off and give it away at all. I'm shocked, I tell you. Shocked to see that she's now the ex. Oh wait, I meant to say I am not shocked at all. Very happy her brother won't be miserable for the rest of his life. Given AITA, I'm always holding my breath a little. It was clear this was a huge red flag. I always feel bad when the people making these posts say that they don't want to cause a fight by bringing attention to something horrible being done to them. Because most of the time when they say this, they are not the ones causing the problems. Whatever the other person did to warrant a conversation being had with outside people is what caused the problem. But they are used to trying to fit in and not be the issue. Opie loves her brother and tries to deal with it without making brother step in. Unfortunately, a lot of people have the mindset that it's the complainer causing the problem, if you could just suck it up like the rest of us. Of course, these people are rarely receptive to the argument that there wouldn't be a problem at all if this person wasn't wronging me, so... Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my mother-in-law she gave up her family and it's her fault she's alone? My husband and I have been married for 6 years. At least 5 of those have been almost no contact with his mother. I don't know the whole story, but his dad passed away when he was young and his mom remarried a man who was horribly abusive to him, up until he moved out. He tried to tell his mother for years, but she just wouldn't believe it. It got to the point that for his own well-being, he just couldn't be around her anymore. This week, after years of silence, she shows up at our doorstep. She said she'd try to call, but we have her blocked, so obviously it didn't go through. She was in tears and started crying about how her husband had trashed her house and left her, and that she realized her son was telling the truth. How she didn't have anyone, all that crap. She begged to talk to my husband. I said that she had some freaking nerve coming to our house to cry after throwing her son to the side for a disgusting predator, until that stopped working for her. I said she made her bed. Now is the time to lay in it, and it wasn't going to be in my house. She was almost hysterical when she left, but her coming to the door put my husband in a panic attack that he's been too depressed to get out of bed since. I really don't care for that woman, but when I replay it in my head, I feel absolutely terrible. Berating someone in tears never feels good, and now I think I might have just made things worse. Should I have done something different? Was that an a-hole move? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. She needed to be told. She didn't care when it was happening to her son, but oh, it's the end of the world when it happened to her. Good for you. Hold your head up high and keep looking after your husband. My high school boyfriend ended himself over his stepfather's maltreatment. never laid a finger on the 4 boys he had with the boyfriend's mom, but beat the crap out of him for the crime of being born out of wedlock. I often wonder if she wised up and left him, but I doubt it. He'll be 30 years gone next June. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. At my wedding, my mother-in-law was bawling and saying she was so sorry she let his stepdad beat my husband. Could you have handled it differently? Sure. But what you did was primal and rightfully protective. Now, ask what your husband needs. I learned that no matter how terrible a parent treats a child, that now grown child still craves the approval from that parent. It was difficult for me to understand, so find out what he needs. That's what matters now. No. We don't crave the parental approval. My mom is very toxic, bossy, and it's her way or it's considered the wrong way. I just live my life and include her as little as possible in my girls' lives. She's like a cancer most of the time. Some people do crave that approval. It took 5 years of no contact with my judgmental narcissistic mother to fully shake that part of my psyche that she formed to crave her approval. Getting her voice out of my head was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, even though I knew for 15 plus years before our no contact period that she was awful. Last story. Am I the a-hole for not designing my cousin's wedding dress, even though I've designed everyone else's? So, I, 29 female, have designed all the wedding dresses for my cousins, siblings, and aunts for the past decade. When my eldest sister, 35 female, got engaged at 24, she asked me to design her dress, since I'm passionate about design and she always loved my style. Her dress was a knockout. Everyone loved it. And ever since whenever one of our relatives announces their engagement, they ask if I can design their dress for them. I've always said yes, because I absolutely love doing it. Just so much fun. On to the issue. My cousin, 23 female, is getting married next February and called me up to see when we could meet so she could share her ideas for a dress and I can start designing it. I did not like this cousin at all. Her parents spoiled her beyond rotten, but I decided to still meet with her though and see if anything has changed since she's now an adult. She immediately shows me some photos of wedding dresses by Sarah Burton and tells me she wants something exactly like the pictures. I tried to suggest a change in neckline or collar, and she shuts it down and tells me she wants exactly like that. I told her I would not be making her dress, as I love designing clothes that embody their wearer and suit them, not rip off other designers so she can look fancy in a knockoff. Some of my family, and especially her and her parents, are beyond upset and have been blowing up my phone because I've broken tradition and my baby cousin's heart, because she's been looking forward to having me make her wedding dress for years now. I feel kind of bad, but at the same time, she's taking the fun and bonding out of designing a wedding dress. If your cousin wants a specific dress, she should just buy the specific dress. The tradition was for you to design the dresses and sharing these moments of creation with your family members. But of course, her and her parents are upset. The sort of dress she wants costs a lot of money. Having you do it is much cheaper. I think it's time you break with the tradition, not the a-hole. The tradition also included asking Opie if she could design a dress for them, not deciding that Opie will do that, and just demanding an appointment for discussing details. Lol. The audacity. This wasn't a cousin feeling grateful about having a designer in the family, and how gracious it is for that designer to take time and energy out of their day to create a custom dress, and showing even a modicum of respect by asking. This is an entitled brat demanding a service she feels entitled to. What really bugs me is that, even if Opie sticks to their guns here, I doubt cousin will actually learn anything from this. They'll simply brush it off as a mean family member. Not the a-hole. She's not asking you to design a dress. She's asking you to help her save a buck on a designer dress. Besides, you can say no for any reason you want. Your family's not entitled to your efforts. Update. Am I the a-hole for telling my husband when I left the bar? Original post. I, 34 female, been married to my husband, 35 male, for almost a year now, and we dated for 3 years before. Ever since we started dating, whenever we go out without the other, we both let each other know where we are and when we arrive or leave, as a safety thing. Example, hey, I arrived to X bar, everything fine, or hey, I'm leaving the bar on an Uber, should be home in 10 minutes. Now, this weekend I went out with my friend Amy and we went to a restaurant and to dance. Around 2 a.m. we decided to go home, and because we live in opposite directions, we each took a different Uber. As usual, I texted my husband to let him know I was going home, and he told me that he was also leaving his friend's house and we should arrive at the same time. I knew that he was out with some of his friends that included Amy's fiancé, and we all know each other for a long time. But I wasn't really thinking about that, just following my routine. We both got home. I texted Amy to let her know I was home safe and went to bed. When I woke up the next morning, I had tons of messages and a few missed calls from Amy. My husband had also some messages and calls from Amy's fiancé. In her text, she was asking me what I had told her fiancé, what had my husband told the fiancé, how dare we meddle in their relationship, etc. The texts on my husband's phone were just asking if I had arrived home and if I had any idea where Amy was. I called Amy, and she again asked what had I told her fiancé. I told her I haven't spoke with him, and she called me an a-hole and a liar, because if I didn't spoke to him, how did he know I had left at 2 a.m.? I explained to her that I had texted my husband as I always do, and she said I'm an a-hole for not telling her that I was doing that, and that my husband is a controlling a-hole for making me text him and for telling her fiancé that she was also leaving. Then she hung up and haven't picked up again. My husband said he only told his friends that he was leaving because he wanted to arrive home the same time as me, and that if my friend did something, I don't know what, that's on her, not me. The thing is, this has reached my other friends, and some are saying that I should text my husband when I arrive home, not when I leave the club, and that I'm an a-hole for not telling Amy what I was texting my husband. Some agree with my husband and say this is on Amy for lying as she said we both stayed dancing even later, and not on me for texting my husband. Honestly, I don't know what to think, as I feel like maybe I should just text my husband arriving home instead to avoid compromising others, or to avoid creating an imaginary curfew for my friends. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments before reading the updates. What the actual foot? No, OP candidate should tell the husband when she's leaving as a security measure, not when arriving. That defeats the purpose of letting each other know to be safe. On the other hand, OP is not putting any curfew to anybody. If the friend didn't inform the husband she was staying longer for whatever reason, or they don't have enough trust with each other to be honest, or not to be worried in these situations, then it's on them and their relationship. So the friend is a liar and OP is the one who pays for it, not the a-hole. Agreed, not the a-hole. As someone who listens to a lot of true crime podcasters and YouTubers, always let someone know where you are, especially if it's late and assuming alcohol is involved. OP's friend is a crappy friend. She lied and got caught. Now she's lashing out at everyone else for her mistake. She couldn't even let OP in on the fact she was using her as her alibi. Amy's delusional, and I wonder how long she has been using OP without them knowing to do whatever sneaky shenanigans she has been up to. Not the a-hole. Exactly, the safety aspect of this. Amy's stupid butt was in the wind, so she's expecting everyone she knows to be? My boyfriend and I do the same as OP, but I also have always done this with my friends. My friends check in when we get home, and not just the ladies because dudes can die too. A safety check is standard, or it should be. Honestly, I believe OP is not a-hole. This is not her fault her friend lied to her partner. Amy did something stupid and got caught, and now it's putting the blame on OP. That's unfair. Amy is gaslighting OP, saying that husband is controlling and blaming OP for not telling her she texted her husband. Husband needs to tell his friend what Amy said. Amy cheated or did something shady, and I hope her fiancé breaks up with her. Amy cheated, nothing else. She cheated. I don't understand unless Amy is trying to hide stuff from her fiancé. If that's the case, it makes sense why she's mad. OP didn't do anything wrong here. I applaud OP and her husband for maintaining communication when they go out without each other. Shows integrity and strong relationship, and just general intelligence of doing what we can to be a bit safer. That is exactly it. Amy is mad at OP because she told her fiancé she was staying out late with her, but Amy's fiancé found out from OP's hubby that OP had been home for an hour already. So Amy got caught lying to her man about where she was, and she's blaming OP for not being good at being an alibi because OP's marriage is too transparent. LMAO. Now for the first update. Hello guys, it's been quite a week. After seeing all the answers, I decided to make the first update about this. I haven't heard Amy's version of what happened during that hour and a half she was missing, but her fiancé told my husband that everything's fine, and that the reason she was late was because she decided to walk home while smoking, and didn't want him to know and be disappointed she's smoking again. As of the wedding, so far that's still happening, but I'm no longer part of the bridal party, as Amy considers me no longer part of her trust circle. I'm still invited to the wedding, but as my husband's +1, because he's still part of the groomsmen. I'm glad I'm not a bridesmaid anymore, and I'm not sure if I'll be comfortable going to the wedding, because Amy and most of her bridesmaids act as if I was trash-talking her to her fiancé when I haven't even spoke to him. I wanted to thank all of those who supported me. I was really worried I had done something bad. But seeing so many people said that they do the same with their significant other or family, I feel much better. The reason she was late was because she decided to walk home while smoking. I didn't want him to know and be disappointed she's smoking again. Ah, yes, and I have a herd of winged unicorns in my yard. I just want to know how many cigarettes she smoked to be out for an hour and a half, just walking and smoking. Also, can I see your winged unicorns? She wasn't any smoking any cigarettes, I guarantee it. But she definitely had something long and cylinder-shaped in her mouth. Well, that guy likes being cheated on, because, yeah, no. 1.5 hours of walking home and smoking? Her reaction was such that I cannot believe smoking is the only thing she was hiding. I'm sure the follow-up post will be, update, Amy was cheating all along. Facts. I'll give Amy's marriage at least 2 to 3 weeks before her husband finds out she cheated on him. Maybe the poor man is in denial. Who would want to believe their loved one choose to cheat? That is exactly what it sounds like. He is in denial and doesn't want to believe it. Amy's excuse is weak, and her fiancé is desperate to believe her. Amy's reaction was way over the top, and if she was only smoking, I doubt she would have reacted as strongly. Don't go OP. Amy's house trashed here. It's not a huge loss to not be in the trust circle of someone that categorically cannot be trusted. Or go and ask Amy who she's cheating on her new husband with. If my friend was using me as a cover for their cheating, I'd want answers. Now for the last update. Well, Reddit, here's the long-awaited update. In short, the wedding was called off. All this I've heard from my husband, a few friends I still had in common with Amy, and from Amy's sister, who is very angry at Amy. Turns out that, as many had assumed, Amy wasn't being faithful. This past weekend, she went dancing with some friends and didn't came home until 5 a.m. Of course, she told her ex-fiancé that she had been with her friends all the time, and that's why she didn't answer her phone. Only for him to tell her that because she wasn't home and wasn't picking up her phone, around 2:30 a.m. he called one of her friends to ask to speak to Amy. And lo and behold, the friend had no idea where Amy was, because they had went dancing all right, but Amy canceled on them and didn't go. She still insisted she was dancing, but with her sister and her sister's friends. Then she went to bed. He called Amy's sister to ask her at what time had Amy left the club to come home, because he remembered the time Amy went dancing with me. And the sister said she hadn't seen Amy either. So, he finally confronted Amy, and after more excuses, she admitted she was with a work friend. At first, she said it was just a friend that she didn't mention because it's a guy, and her fiancé would be jealous. But after more fighting and circle talk, she told him it was just a bit of pre-wedding fun. Nothing serious, and that it wasn't cheating because they didn't have sex, and it was only flirting and hanging out alone at his apartment. So he called off the wedding because he doesn't approve of this kind of pre-wedding fun. He is staying with some friends, and she is calling everyone she can think of to ask us to talk to him to get the wedding back on. Edit, because I saw some questions about my friends and ex-friends. 3 of the bridesmaids still in full support of Amy, saying that her ex should just hear her out, and the other 2 a radio silence. Make of that what you will. The friends in common that I mentioned here are what I consider drama-free. They know what happened before and what happened now. They're the ones that told me I did nothing wrong when the first thing happened in my original post. They weren't bridesmaids, but still part of the same friend group. I remember the first post, and I'm so not surprised with the outcome. I was more surprised when the fiancé believed her smoking story. Undoubtedly he didn't, since he was calling her all night, and ended up calling the friend to talk with her. Guess she thought friends and sister would cover for her. Also, guess they owe OP an apology. I'm not proud of this, but I had a friend when I was young that was trying to escape a controlling relationship, but it was taking her time to save up to leave. So when she wanted to go out without him, she'd use me as a cover. But she was smart enough to tell me when I needed to cover for her. Looking back, I don't know how controlling he really was, or if she was just a cheater, but I had just left a super controlling boyfriend, so it was believable to me at the time. So the real question is, did you dump Amy as a friend? Because she sucks big time. We stopped being friends when I was fired from being a bridesmaid, and she kicked me out of her circle of trust for talking to my own husband. I don't think she understands what the word trust means. Good riddance. I love when crappy people blow up their own lives. Keep rocking, OP. Oh, she knows what trust means. To her, trust means keeping her secrets so she can cheat without consequence. Even if she didn't physically cheat, she sure as heck lied her butt off more than once, dragging everyone into her messy drama. I hope everyone dumps her. And good for her ex-fiancé. Cheating or not, that amount of off-the-wall lies is enough. Got lost walking home smoking? Can I have some of what she was smoking? No chance it wasn't physical. You don't take a detour at 2 a.m. to just flirt with a colleague alone at his apartment. She was just trickle-truthing her fiancé because she thought she could get away with admitting that when her other alibi fell through. But I agree, even if no happened, he was still right to dump her for lying and throwing all her friends under the bus. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling the woman that I nanny for that her husband is cheating on her? I, 23 female, have been a nanny for this wonderful family for 3 years now. The family consists of mom, I'll call her Amy, dad I'll call him Ben, and their one child I'll call Cindy. I started when Cindy was a month old, and at this point, they all feel like part of my family now too. I decided to stick with them after graduating from college, instead of immediately pursuing a teaching career because I just love Cindy so much. On top of that, they pay me really well. Last weekend, I was out with my boyfriend getting dinner. To my surprise, I saw Ben at a restaurant as well, with a woman who was certainly not Amy. I tried to assume the best, thinking maybe it was a relative of his or something, but then he leaned over and kissed this woman. I was shocked and just told my boyfriend we should go somewhere else, and I pulled him out there quick because I did not want Ben to see me. This happened Saturday of last week. I thought things through that night and over a Sunday, and I really didn't know what to do. Amy's expecting another child with Ben, and I tried putting myself in her shoes. I decided that if it were me, I'd want to know that my husband was seeing another woman, so I told her on Monday morning. Ben is never the one home in the morning when I show up, it's always Amy. I walked in, took a deep breath, and just explained what I had seen. I was hoping maybe she'd tell me that the relationship was open, or they were already separating, but unfortunately that's not what happened. She immediately got tears in her eyes and was just shaking her head in disbelief, and she kept asking me if I was sure that I had seen him. I told her yes, and she left work still crying. When she got home later, she seemed pretty emotionless and was quite cold with me. I got a text later on that evening saying that her and Cindy were going to stay with her parents for a week or two, and that she wouldn't be needing me to nanny until they got back. I haven't received any further communication from her. I thought that I was right for telling her, but my mom and a few of my friends told me that I was wrong for sticking my nose in their business. My mom even said I'll probably end up losing my job now, and I'll admit, that has me very stressed out. Now I feel like an a-hole who blew up a marriage and stressed a pregnant woman out. So am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. No, but you might want to start that teaching career now. You did the right thing, but you'll probably have to deal with the fallout too. Sometimes doing the right thing has negative consequences. But you sound like a good person, and keeping it to yourself would have negative consequences for your well-being. No, Opie, not the a-hole. Not at all. You absolutely did the right thing, and for the right reasons. Her husband blew up the marriage, not you. You did not stick your nose in their business. He advertised his business in public, and you happened to see it. Thank goodness. Can you imagine being pregnant with your second child? You have that child, then a few years later you have a mysterious STD, so it comes out your husband was a dirtbag cheater. And then you find out the nanny knew the whole time and didn't tell you? No way. You were right to do what you did. It doesn't sound like he was even trying to hide it. Yes, you may lose your job, especially if his income is significantly more than hers. She may not be able to afford it during and after divorce. So don't assume there is anything personal involved there. Give her the time she noted before getting too concerned, but my advice is to sign up to substitute teach in your area in the meantime. Don't delay your future while you wait. Thank you for doing what you did. I wish someone would have done so for me back in the day. Thank you so much for this response. The substitute teaching idea is a very good one. I'm going to look into it. You're absolutely right. I honestly can't even imagine being in her position right now. It's just too horrible. This man was at a restaurant about 30 minutes away from our smallish town. So it very easily could have been someone else who saw him and told his wife. He really wasn't trying to hide it. Not the a-hole. I'm sure she wasn't trying to be cold with you. She was probably in shock and survival mode. The family may be disintegrating, so you may not have a nanny job anymore, but that isn't your fault. You did the right thing. If I was the wife, I would want to be told. Yeah, I'm not upset that she was cold with me. I know I'd be in shock if I found out my boyfriend was cheating on me, and we aren't married and have no kids together. I know she must be feeling absolutely horrible right now. Thank you for your response. I, 38 female, friend, 34 female, unloaded all the dirty details of her affair to me and then started a smear campaign against me. Original post. I will try to keep this short. I've been friends with Raven and her husband Zach for over 10 years. I'm much closer to Raven, but Zach has always been in the picture. He's always been a pretty nice but quiet guy and we got along fine, but we weren't super close. It was just more of a female friendship, if you know what I mean. In April, Raven confided in me that she was having an affair with a married man, Nathan, 38 male. A married man who she works with. If that wasn't bad enough, Raven is Nathan's supervisor, and she would lose her job if the affair was outed because it violates the company code of conduct. I never pumped her for info about the affair, but Raven was all too gleeful to share that she is in love with Nathan, and he's the best, greatest, smartest, coolest, hottest male that she has ever met. In her opinion only, obviously. Truth be told, I've met Nathan, and I strongly dislike him. Raven has told a few other friends in our circle as well. However, I'm pretty sure I'm the only person she's had verifiable proof to, which leaves me as the only person who could prove the affair was happening, as far as I know at least. Well, Raven is a bit of a talker, and apparently she has talked so much about amazing Nathan at home that, lo and behold, Zach got suspicious and asked her if she was having an emotional affair with Nathan. Raven flipped out, and in retaliation, I assume, she's now telling everyone who will listen that Zach is having an affair with me. This is clearly false, and I've offered to give her all of our text messages, and there are hardly any. Take a lie detector, anything she wants. Her response to me is that she knows we aren't having an affair, and that she just didn't like Zach talking to me, and that accusing him of having an affair with me was the only way to make sure he was too scared to talk to me. She is clearly paranoid that I'm going to tell Zach that her affair with Nathan is actually physical, or show him the documentation and photos she sent to me. I wasn't planning on getting involved in all this, as it is their private marital business. However, in the last few days, I've had people that I barely know from our town ask me if I'm having an affair with Zach, and forwarding me screenshots of messages they received from Raven, telling them I'm a homewrecker. I cannot for the life of me understand why she's running a smear campaign against me. I'm a local business owner, and this could affect my livelihood. If I was reactive, I could easily out the affair to Zach and destroy her career. I don't want to do that because I don't want to get sucked into her crazy, and I don't take ruining a person's career lightly, especially when they have a family to provide for. But I'm at an absolute loss on how to confront this. I don't want her smear campaign to reach my family, affect my kids at school, or affect my business. I've told my partner, and he knows she's lying, and he has never liked Raven anyway, but he too is struggling with how to handle it. Her smear campaign is just a lie, and she admitted it to me in writing. I'm just flabbergasted. So guys, how do I get her to back off the smear campaign without getting caught up in her crazy personal life drama? Now for the top advice before reading the update. What is wrong with you? Even if your husband knows it's false, how do you think he feels with everyone looking at him like he's been getting cheated on? How will your kids react if they get to know? Are you really willing to hurt your family in order to protect this vile woman? Please be serious. I would never hurt my own family. Thanks for the gut check. Make 100 copies of her message to you admitting it is all a lie and send it to every person who reaches out to you. Those messages also discuss Nathan by name. Wouldn't sending those out just add fuel to the fire? I've seen a side of Raven in the last little while that I didn't know existed, and I really don't want her coming for me and my family. She's scary. Kinda sounds like it's her or you at this point. That's a good point. It makes me sick to my stomach to even think about. Make sure the screenshots show her number, not just her name. You need to burn her to the ground, and don't think twice about it. It would definitely fuel the fire, but she started this crap, and you don't need a homewrecker label on you. Be unapologetic. I cannot for the life of me understand why she is running a smear campaign against me. Seems pretty clear to me that she's doing it to take the heat off herself. Out her. Bring the receipts. Leave your scruples about ruining her career in the dust. After all, she's not concerned about ruining yours, right? I don't take ruining a person's career lightly, especially when they have a family to provide for. She's already ruined her career by having the affair. It just hasn't ended yet. Thank you. I know you're right. If I'm being honest with myself, I think I'm just afraid of her. Yep, I'd be too, because that level of antics is practically sociopathic. But you have receipts. Use them. Plus, she's marrying the person she's cheating on. Now for the update. My partner and I met with Zach at a coffee shop. I hadn't seen him in a while and he looked awful, like he had lost weight and hasn't slept for a month. We bought him a latte and a sandwich and told him I had some very difficult information to share with him. I told him point blank that Raven is having an affair with Nathan and every detail I knew about it. I gave him my phone and let him read through the texts, as well as share the screenshots Raven sent me of her conversations with Nathan about the sordid details of their affair and sexy pics they took together. I apologized to him for not telling him sooner, as that was inexcusable. I thought Zach would be upset or distraught, but he seemed relieved. He teared up and thanked me for telling him, but it really seemed like a weight was lifted from him. I told him I would download a full conversation and all the screenshots and give it to him on a flash drive so he can decide what to do with them. He kept repeating, "I knew it wasn't me." Zach then played a recording from the security camera in their garage that picked up a conversation as he was trying to leave the house and she was standing behind his car to block him in. Guys, I didn't even recognize the person in that video. She was crazed, throwing things at him, calling him an insane person, talking about how their son is on the spectrum because of Zach's weak inferior genes, and screaming at him about how it's his fault that I cut off contact with her and she lost her best friend. At the end of the video, she started kicking at him and he just backed away to avoid it. I was dumbfounded. I had no idea she was like that behind closed doors. He said she has gotten worse lately, but she has always had an issue with rage. I am sick to my stomach, but told him that my partner and I have his back, whatever his needs are. He said he is calling a divorce lawyer and moving forward. As for me, I blocked Raven on all platforms, and I sent the texts in which she acknowledges that she knows her smear campaign is a lie to the people who have reached out to me. I sent the same screenshots to my lawyer, who will be sending her a cease and desist letter with a text chain attached, telling her to stop her smear campaign, and that I will be forwarding her statements to every single person who I learn was told this lie. I hope like crazy that she doesn't double down and come for me, but I am ready if she does. When we left the coffee shop, Zach gave me a hug. The irony of this entire thing is that it's the first time I think I've ever even touched a guy. Yet here I am defending an accusation that I had a full-blown affair with him. Next story. My boyfriend and best friend are in love with each other. Original post. I've never experienced this kind of betrayal before. I'm at a loss for words. I don't know how to handle this situation. For some context, Debbie's my best friend since high school, and my boyfriend Adam and I have been together for 2 years. All three of us would hang out together, and I saw the relationship between Debbie and Adam as a friendly banter, that of a brother and a sister. Debbie never spoke down on Adam, nor Adam of Debbie. Of course, they'd have disagreements, but I always saw it as something funny like children fighting. I noticed signs when Debbie started saying that she didn't want Adam to hang out with us. She said she just wanted it to be her and I. Every time Adam got mentioned or anything, she'd look super upset. I asked her what was wrong, and she insisted it was nothing. Fast forward to the next day. I'm staying the night at Adam's, and he's asking about Debbie. He said she's acting weird. I asked if he talked to her, and he said not much, but that she seemed off, and he asked me to check on her. Adam went to take a shower, and he got a message from Debbie. He's always left his phone around me, and I really didn't think anything of it, so I checked it because I had messaged Debbie, but she never responded. The first message she sent was, "I feel horrible and I love her, but I can't help how I feel about you. You need to choose because you can't have both." Apparently, Adam and Debbie had hooked up a few months ago after Valentine's Day, and almost all the time since. I remember when Adam brought Debbie and I flowers out on Valentine's Day, but I only thought of it as a friendly gesture. Debbie was so happy. It was all she talked about. She kept telling me how lucky I was, but as my best friend, I didn't think it would mean she would do this. I read more messages. Times when Debbie and Adam said they were hanging out with friends or doing overtime at work, they were with each other. They had sent each other spicy photos, and Adam had even compared me and Debbie's bodies. She had been trying to convince Adam to tell me about them and leave me, hoping I would understand that they were in love. But apparently Adam was still in love with me and didn't want to let me go. Debbie was always there for me, supportive and kind, the most beautiful person I'd ever known. And Adam, the love of my life, who would have given his last dollar if it meant I'd be okay, was an old soul, someone you could always depend on. So I don't understand why they do this to me. I used my phone to take pictures of everything, and when Adam came back out, I told him my mom had an emergency and I had to leave. I needed some time to process what I was feeling and think about my next steps. I spent the whole night crying and reading over all the messages I'd collected. After losing myself and crying myself to sleep, I woke up the next morning and took a long shower. I pondered for a bit, but ultimately decided that no friend or boyfriend should treat me this way, and I needed to do something about it. I haven't confronted Debbie or Adam yet, though they both texted me asking if I'm alright. I'll probably sit them both down together and handle this like adults. I'm almost 30. I thought maybe we'd get married one day, and Debbie would be my maid of honor. I thought wrong. Now for the top advice before reading the update. Don't give them the satisfaction of more of your time. Cut them both out of your life. There's nothing salvageable here. They both betrayed you beyond the point of forgiving. This is the way. Take your screenshots and keep them safe for the flying monkeys when they come. But just cut these two out. You don't live together. They clearly don't care. They've betrayed you as they want their cake and eat it. You owe them nothing. Nearly 30 and still young. Go out and live your best life. And blank the bastards. Exactly. I'd ghost them. Block them everywhere. Tell mutual friends you won't be hanging out around these two any longer. Then start the healing process with therapy and self-care. There's not a damn thing that will come after either of their mouths that will do anything but cause further pain. Take heart that like 90+% of relationships starting from infidelity fail and leave them to their inevitable train wreck. Tell your friends what they did. They do not get to control the narrative. Cut them both off. Go no contact and let your friends know that you don't want to hear about them and that they're not to share info about you to them. Exactly. I'd blast it out in the world. Let these pieces of work deal with the consequences. Same. I'd post the screenshots. If they want to be together, everyone deserves to know how they got together. I wouldn't even give them another second of my time. I would send them a text that said, "Since you both couldn't respect me enough to not cheat and lie, I no longer want any contact with either of you. I am serious. Do not contact me in any way." And block them. I agree with this. I would make it shorter. Our relationship is done. Never contact me again and I will do the same. It is my final decision and not an invitation for discussion. Respect it. Then block them everywhere. OP, you are in complete shock right now. It is silly, but playing Tetris or Worldly or Sudoku help to process the shock. Look up butterfly hug technique on YouTube. It is very simple movement and it will also help you to ground yourself. If you have mutual friends, relatives, ask them to not be flying monkeys. Never share information about you with them and vice versa. Not invite you at the parties when they are invited. Treat yourself like a little child who is not feeling well. Eat well, sleep, cry, pamper yourself, get a massage, go somewhere out of town. Talk about it with someone you trust. Journal your thoughts. Just write for 30 minutes every day whatever comes to mind, even if it is the F word written 100 times. You are in hell now, but it will get better. It always does. I would not talk to them. This conversation could hurt you even more. They will keep apologizing. They will tell that they never wanted to hurt you, that they love you. Debbie will say that they fell in love and could not fight it. Adam will be ashamed and afraid to look at you. Do you need it? There is nothing else they could possibly say. Don't give them the opportunity to ease their conscience by saying they're sorry. Now for the update. First, thank you all for such kind and supportive words and thoughts. And thank you to those who reached out to me to make sure I was okay. I didn't think I'd get too many responses. I just put it out hoping to get some advice, but I got so much more than that. And sorry I'm so late with what followed next, but it was a long day. I've been friends with Debbie since freshman year of high school. She threw away 16 years of friendship. I helped pay off her car she drives around in. It's okay. She did come over, and I didn't have to tell her I knew, because in my anxiety at Adam's, I accidentally left the messages open on his phone, and they both called my dad to check on my mom, and found out I lied about her emergency, so they both are aware I know now. I wanted Debbie to explain in detail how they started hooking up. Long story short, it was actually on Valentine's Day. I was the night shift, and they'd been at my apartment waiting for me and got drunk and did it on my couch. They both have a key to my apartment. When I had come home, they were fully clothed and passed out on opposite sides of the couch. I remember feeling bad for leaving them all night to be bored. Now I see they put each other to sleep. After Debbie told me, I just forced her out of my apartment. I practically dragged her out. She wouldn't give back my key. Adam had been blowing me up the whole day, but couldn't come see me till he was off work. Even when he did, his reasons and explanations were stupid. He claimed to still love me, still want to be with me, and promised never to speak or see Debbie again. I didn't even hear the rest of it. I just told him to leave. I'm watching the maintenance man change the locks as I type this. My heart is hardened towards them both after learning about their lies. And I'm extremely hurt, and my trust has been broken, and I feel as if I'll never be able to really love again. In all honesty, I hope they stay together and figure out if it was worth it or not. What also hurts is, I still love them, but I hate them both at the same time. There's no fixing this. There's no rekindling it. And to those who kept pushing me to do an open relationship with the both of them, please go screw yourselves. Or better yet, go be in an open relationship with someone who cheated on you. They've been hooking up behind my back for months now. If Adam wanted an open relationship, he would have asked. Plus, polygamous relationships have never been a thing for me, and never will. I don't agree with it, and I find the entire subject to be stupid, but to each their own. They are both blocked, and I sent screenshots to all of our friends and parents. Yes, my own, yes, Debbie's, and yes, his. All our parents are close friends, especially me and Debbie's parents. I'm sure it would be nice to watch their world burn, but instead, I'm going to have the couch they banged on delivered to Debbie's house, with the same wine they drank that night sent to Adam. I'm going to go shopping for a new couch eventually, but my recliner chair will do for now. I don't know if they'll stay together, but if they do, no one will support them. No one will be on their side, and no one will ever trust them or believe anything they say. And that's revenge enough for me. Again, thanks for everything.